Hey everyone, hi Renats. Thank you very much for a welcoming speech. It was very nice. All right, I will now start sharing the screen, and I'm doing it right now. And yes, so let's talk about server queue and how to solve some delayed metrics, some delayed stuff which is not coming to the monitoring tool. And let's jump to the right to the topic. So, server queue. In a perfect world, we expect that all devices are running all the time. That could be, for the most cases, that's the case. If a server is running, if a router is online, that's a good indication. There are some use cases when that's not the case, but usually that's the case. And here we have to classify the metrics in some sort of categories. Are we using Zabbix agent? Are we polling SNMP device? Are we accepting traps from SNMP device? What kind of checks we are performing? And all checks can be classified like into the passive check or into the active check. Passive check is basically a check which has been initiated from the Zabbix master component. Either it's a Zabbix proxy or Zabbix central server. So this is a passive check. And here in the screenshot, everything is a passive check, only one line, Zabbix agent active. That's a second type of use case when the initiative on the monitoring mainly relies on the local machine, on the agent. So agent will take really this task seriously, will execute the checks, will keep the content in memory maybe for 1 second or 2 seconds, and push back the content to the master server. Let's go further. What's important to keep the health of instance very good? The first thing is we have to have the time correct and inside and synchronized between Zabbix components. Actually, the second rule only applies. We have to have time in sync between components. It can be not correct on any component, that will work still okay, but we have to keep that the same for every machine which happens to be monitored. And for the passive checks, it's very important to have time the same with the Zabbix master server. All the Zabbix proxies must keep the time the same with the master server. And we can ensure that with the time date CTL. And we must compare this universal time. It's absolutely okay if you use monitoring tool worldwide and you have clients distributed in different places in different time zones. So time zone does not matter. All it matters this universal time, and it must be the same. And also here in the screenshot, NTP service, which is the service which is responsible about keeping the time synchronized. It will tell is it like active or offline. And here in the screenshot, inactive. This is bad news. We can like manually set the time correct, but eventually, when months goes by, it will go away, and you can. That's not good. You will start to receive some false alerts. So yeah, that's for passive checks. And for the active checks, it's very crucial to keep the time correct on the local Zabbix machine. And it's like a Linux machine or Windows server or Windows workstation. And you can just launch the command date on the Linux, or on the Windows, it's date /t or time/t, just to ensure what is the clock and what's the date currently. Let's navigate further. So since I was talking about time settings so much, so you would probably ask how to keep this in sync, because the monitoring tool is supposed to help us to keep everything automatic. So it will distract you only if there is a real problem. So we actually have out from the box discovered, if we use a very modern installation like 5.0, we set up it from stock repository. it will have already inside the default template Linux Zabbix agent. There will be item which checks, which downloads the local time of a machine, and there's a trigger linked on this item, like fuzzy time, and what it does, it grabs this local time of a machine and compares with the timestamp of the check. Like in the very second we perform the check, it will be performed in some specific time frame, and we will compare the content we download with the time when we did execute this check. So this is very applicable for the passive checks, and for the most environments that's enough. If we have these green ZBX icons, we can use this approach, and it will work really well. But sometimes we tend to use only active checks. Maybe there is a machine inside the public internet, and the client does not is not willing to expose any ports in the firewall, and the only chance to monitor this machine is by using active checks only. And for this particular thing, I can offer or advertise a custom solution. This is described at our blog post, and it's the dependencies for the solution is Zabbix 4.2 as a minimal version, and it's basically based on the JavaScript. This solution will the first step is quite similar. We will grab the local time of a machine. And the magic happens inside the pre-processing. The pre-processing is executed on the Zabbix proxy or Zabbix central server. And inside the pre-processing, Zabbix, in the level of item, already determine if this time is going somewhere in the past or in the future, like this function, math round, new date, get time, divided by 1,000, and minus value is the timestamp, is the Unix time of the machine. And this can generate a positive number, or it can generate a negative number. So positive number will go in one direction, negative in the second direction. And if it is like bigger than 100, it's 100 seconds, it's more than 1 minute. You can link a trigger on this, and it will determine when the agent time has gone away. So more about the solution is described in the blog post. You can check out individually. So we are still talking about server queue, but just because I told the very crucial thing to work with the tool is to keep the time synchronized across the components. So that's why I'm bringing this topic up. The next chapter is how queue works, and maybe not everyone knows that the queue is very highly related with the server uptime. With the uptime of the service Zabbix minus server. Here in the screenshot, we can see the service is running for 2 weeks, 3 days. And the queue is very related with how many seconds the server is up and running. And you can try it. Just restart the service, and all the queue will go away. But it does not solve the problem, like not at all. It will create an illusion that everything is okay. And after 15 minutes, because the queue section there is how many values are missing for 1 minute, for 5 minutes, for 10 minutes. After 15 minutes of the server has run it, you will see again some metrics in the list. Okay, and the queue details. Here, administration general, queue details, we can always observe and work with the metrics which are missing to the server. And this list is actually limited to the 500 records. This is quite frequently asked question that on the bottom of screen we see what is the total number. Maybe we are missing few thousand metrics, and then we ask question how to see other entries, and we must solve the entries on the very top in order to see what's at the bottom. And we still need to approach this thing much more globally. So if you ask this question, how to deal with 10,000 of records, my answer is that most likely some machines are completely offline. And let's deal with that in the next chapter. So in order to deal with machines which are in currently offline, most likely you have some of like these red icons are all over the place in your instance. Like agent is not reachable, or SNMP device is not reachable, Java application not reachable, IPMI registry is not reachable. So these registries are indicating that the host is really not reachable, and that's the reason why we cannot gather the content. And to approach this thing, I recommend to use an API procedure to query all these messages, which are really, really having currently, like, host is unavailable right now. And here I offer a solution. We will use Windows PowerShell. So all the Zabbix members who is Windows lovers, finally we can use Zabbix API through the Windows PowerShell. And this script is available again at the bottom of the screen. There is an link to the blog post. There is a 100-line snippet. You just copy and paste, provide valid username and password, and it's ready to be used. And this script, what it does, it will collect all the hosts and what is the status of the host. Is it like online? Is it down? And is it not reachable? Or maybe status is unknown. And what's beauty here in the PowerShell offers like pipe the output to this function procedure out grid view, which creates some sort of it's something similar to the Microsoft Excel. We have columns, we have rows, and we can use on-the-fly filtering. So at the first, it will download all the hosts and put it here in the list. If the instance is having thousands of hosts, there will be thousands of lines here. But what's beautiful is that we can enter the filtering and say, I want to see every host which contains the keyword not, and like status. We address the host status not reachable, and it will instantly filter all so-called red hosts. Either it's an agent, SNMP device, Java application, and the error message is here, and we can now really group together some DNS-related issues, group together some firewall-related issues. Here, it's like indicating we are trying to reach a device on the port 150. And it's either the agent is not running or a firewall issue. And what's also beautiful about this snippet, I'm really proud of, is that this column, connection, this column really respects what is the connection installed inside the configuration. You know, some companies are preferring to monitor systems directly, connecting to the IP address. Some are preferring to use DNS. And the script will really take you much more closer. It will respect what's configured here and put exactly the entry which is used to reach out this device by using passive checks. If you prefer IP address, the IP address will be here. If you prefer DNS record, the DNS will be here. So it will save some time to troubleshoot the issue. All right. More about this issue at the blog post. You can just also open the blog and write the keyword unreachable, click search, and it will bring you to this lead. Some different type of scenario when we have a lot of active agents. We really target to monitor multi-tenant environment, and we install Zabbix agent. We are using active checks only, and now we need to understand if either the client is client machine is off, or maybe the clock is not correct. So if the queue is big and there are, that you are dealing with active checks, like only active checks, then we have to have some sort of workaround to extract that information. So I'm offering to contact the API that's required to obtain the session key. That's the first step. We are using username admin with the password Zabbix, and the session key is here. And now, the first step, we are contacting the front end. The front end must be online. This 127.001 is the address of the front end. But in next step, we will ping the main monitoring tool, like the backend. We will ping the process which is very responsible about the monitoring, like the server where the service Zabbix -server is installed. And we will ask a detailed list of queue elements. Here, limit is 9 million items. If you have 9 million of missing metrics, it will present all the item IDs in the output. And here there is a sample output how this content can look like. And what we will do in next step, we will just contact the database to list the details about those item IDs. So in the next step, the task is to put this content in external file. So if you did see the content is valid JSON content, then we are ready to put this information in external file. And in the next step, the solution is applicable for the both most popular database engines, MySQL, PostgreSQL. This is an optional step. I just recommend it, not to type the username password all the time in the client utility. We can install a passwordless access. So these are approaches how to do that. And now some sort of bash snippet. I'm not crazy proud of it, but it does do the job, and it can complete it quite well. And what we are doing, we are at first contacting the queue.json file, and we are extracting every ID. We need to know only ID, and it will be ID, comma, different ID, comma, next ID, comma, and you can group there millions of IDs together with a separator of comma. And for those who are familiar with the database client, we will put this content here in the almost last line, where item ID in, and inside the parentheses, there will be all the item IDs. All those million item IDs will go in here in the parentheses, and it will be one huge bulk request, quite effective. That's the correct word. One bulk request, and it will tell instantly what's the proxy, what's the host name, and what's the key for this item ID. And this approach is applicable for both type of database clients, and you will move this in the external file. And what you get in output is such list. There are some ways to accomplish comma-separated values. Also, you can target that by modify the query, but the default approach is here I am representing on the screen. Okay, that's it for my presentation. Hope you like it, and thank you very much for having me.
All right. Thank you for the great presentation. It is now clear what Q is. So we do have a few questions. Not a lot, but there are a few. So the first question that we have is there any portal how to calculate queues or Zabbix server parameters? What can you tell us about that? Do you have any kind of information that you can share with the community?
I almost need for you to repeat the question. Calculation of what?
Basically, is there a possibility to calculate the queue? So is there a possibility to know how many, let's say, items we have, we might potentially have delayed, or by how long. Um, Anything that is, so let's say our queue is not available on our server, right? So we want to know whether or not we have some sort of problems that we might need to address.
Yeah. One side note, I would say the default section in the graphical interface we have already, it states the host name and how many minutes or days the metric is missing. That answers like one tiny part of your question. And to calculate yeah like I want to say like we have a host, and in the worst case scenario we will have missing metrics as much as summing together all the hosts and all the items which are there. So I am not quite sure if I did really answer this question as it was intended to, but so to work up to talk about the calculation, I would like to mention that that the worst case scenario is just look how many items your hosts are having, and this can be observable like under the reports status of Zabbix, and it will instantly tell how many items you are having totally. There is a number already, and then when we open the section queue, there at the bottom of the screen we see the context, how many metrics are missing. That's my answer.
All right. Thank you about that. And just one quick, hopefully quick question. Are you aware of any algorithms how the checks are executed on a fresh server boot up?
This is quite deep one. So I was mentioning in the presentation like it's related to the uptime, and when we restart, it just clears all the metrics. The section is absolutely clear, and I know this information from development team that the way how checks are distributed, like it's quite shocking information. It's the thing is very highly related to the item ID. Like we generate these items, and on the stock installation item ID consists with 5 digits, and so I'm saying that it's very related with the item ID. And what's also involved in the process is item update interval. And like, let me give you one example. Imagine if you have an item ID 45, and the definition how to execute this check is every 30 seconds. So in order to understand when the check will be executed, all we need to do is take the item ID and divide by this update interval. So 45 divided by 30, it's like 1, but what we need to take is this remaining number. When we perform this division, we will be left with the number 15, because that's the remaining. And this is the key to understand when the passive check will be executed. So we take item ID, divide by the frequency, and take the remaining, and now we understand when the check will be executed after the server boot up. Thank you for the question.